Hey guys, before the supplies video starts, I just wanted to give you a quick heads up or update. We are switching some of the materials that we're using for this ring, and not really the materials, but kind of the sizes and quantities. And so here's the final version. We ended up doing a lot of different prototypes of the original ring I did. And so just so you know, the ingredients that you receive will be a little bit different, and that's because we've refined the design and we think the new design is going to be a lot better for a lot of different reasons. We changed like the particle size. We'd recommend kind of crushing the pieces up to be fairly small to get the same effect as this final version I've got here. And then just a couple other things like the color palette. We've got a darker green color. The emeralds are a lot more of a rich color. And then the opal specifically, we switched that to another color that only fluoresces a green and blue hue to it, instead of the other one we were using before where it had a lot of like orange and red to it. So it just keeps the color palette a lot more straightforward and simplified. And I think you guys will agree, this is not showing up well at all, but I think you'll see from the end products versus the original design and our new refined design, I think you'll like it a lot better. So that's just a quick update, and now let's get on to the video.
Hey, what's up guys? In today's video, we're going to be making a ring that I'm really excited for, mainly because of the color combination that we're going to have. And so I've been wanting to try this forever. We're going to use a cobalt chrome blank. And if you didn't know, cobalt chrome, it's a really pure white metal. So if you're familiar with the way platinum looks, it's very similar to that. It's just a very bright silver color, so just like a really pure look that it has. And then I want to mix it with a green pattern. I think that will be, they'll match perfectly together. We'll have that bright silver with that green. It kind of reminds me of like elves from Lord of the Rings or something like that. Just a really cool, almost like foresty, really kind of clean look to it. And so I'm excited for the inlay options that we're going to have in this. So I've got some green marble here. This is just going to have a really nice, really natural look. And then I'm going to spice it up with some opal here. This is a green opal that fluoresces a couple of different colors, but a very interesting material that I think will go well with it. It's mostly green, but it's got some color pop to it, so it'll kind of switch up the design of it and make it just a little more interesting. And then in here I've got emerald, and so this is going to kind of make it a little more premium. This is, you know, it's real natural emerald, so it's really good material. And it's going to give it that nice kind of translucent effect, and so the ring will have a little bit more depth to it. And so overall, these three materials I think are going to be such a fantastic combination. And then the color of it, the green with the cobalt chrome, and then of course all of the inlay materials are green. So I think this should be a really solid ring. The first step that I'll need to get into is I need to get my ring blank out, and I picked this in my size because this is a ring I've wanted to make for myself, to be honest, forever. So making myself a ring here, this I think it'll be really cool. So you can see the cobalt chrome, that fits just right. Now I just need to pick a mandrel. And these mandrels, they're available on my supplies website. And one thing I wanted to do this video for is, this is a ring that doesn't use that much material. So we sell all of these items on our supplies website. They're not very expensive. You can get all of these for, you know, overall, you could probably do one of these rings for under like 60, 70, maybe $100, depending on if you have mandrels already. But we try to make it really easy for you guys, and this is one that's a lot more simple, and you don't need that crazy of materials, or I should say tools, to machine it down and polish it up. So I just need to find the mandrel that's going to fit. This is the medium mandrel. You can see that's a perfect fit on there, so that's how I'll do it. And so yeah, still a little bit too big for this one, and it doesn't fit on this one. So I'll set these aside, but that's going to be all we need for this video. I've got my blank, it fits on this mandrel, and then all of these ready. I just need to take some, this is green glow powder. Sorry, I didn't mention that earlier. This will glow green, so just to match the theme, obviously it'll glow green. So I've got green glow powder here, and this is green color pigment. So I'll mix it up in this vial here. I'll pour some green glow and then some green pigment, and we should end up with a really nice color that glows green. And then I'll just going to be inlaying all of the materials. I'll do the pieces first, and then as I'm going, I'll sprinkle in some of our glow powder. So that's just a rundown of all the materials and the thinking behind why I'm picking them all. But now let's go ahead and get into the making of it, and I'll kind of walk you through all the steps that I take. All right, mixing for this ring will be really simple. I've got my green glow powder here. I'll pour in enough so that we can make at least one ring with plenty of extra to spare in case I mess up at all. So that's about a third or a fourth of a vial. That should be enough for at least one ring, maybe even two if I don't mess up. And now the pigment, we send in our supplies kits a full vial of it just because we're not trying to be cheap on you guys, but you really don't. The pigment's super powerful. You don't need much at all. So I just sprinkled in a little bit. I'm going to mix that up and see how it looks. But I'm thinking I'll need a little bit more, but you don't want to overdo it because it detracts from the glow if you have too much. You want to mix it really thoroughly because if you don't, there can be a little pocket of it, and like I was saying, it's super powerful, the pigment, and it can really change the color. That didn't do too much. It's just kind of a really light lime green, so I'm going to go ahead and tap in a little bit more. Getting closer, still not quite to where I want. I might do a color sample. Here, I'll get out my block for it. I'll just have that ready. I'm definitely gonna need a little bit more, so I'll do that first. Looks like there's a little bit of pigment stuck to the lid. Make sure that's all mixed in. There we go, we're getting a lot nicer of a green color. Once you mix it with the adhesive, it really darkens it. So I'll do that now. All right, so I'm going to do a color sample. To do that, I've just got this piece of metal here. It's really easy to clean this off of just pure metal like this. It just kind of chips off once it's dried. I'll just sprinkle a little bit on there. Add a bit on top. That's looking good. I think I'll add just a teeny bit more of our pigment. And we should be good to go. I'll do another sample and we can see if we can tell a difference between the two. It looks fairly similar. I think I can tell that it's a bit darker. Yeah, you can see it's just a little more of a deep green. So I think we'll call that good. That'll give us a really nice glow because we didn't really add all that much pigment. But we'll still have that rich green color to it. And then after we add the inlay materials, this marble here, once it's polished up, it's a really deep dark green, so that's going to look nice. That's going to darken the overall color. Same with these. And then the emerald, these are translucent, so if we have a dark background on it, those will be dark too. So overall, we should have a really nice color. So without further ado, I've got my blank here ready. I'll just mount it to my expanding ring mandrel on the lathe, and we can get started. All right, I just need to mount the ring to the mandrel. So I'm putting the mandrel in the lathe, mounting this here. And if you don't have a lathe, I think it's possible if you use like a hand drill, like just a DeWalt or Ryobi drill, I think it's possible. You know, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but I think you could get at least acceptable results doing it. Obviously the lathe's going to be a lot better, but you know, if you're working on a budget, it could definitely work out. All right, and just quickly, I'll make sure that it's all centered, that I mounted it correctly. That's perfect. You can see it hardly even looks like it's moving. Got that good. So I can give it a cool, just overall pop of color. But I want to do smaller pieces. Okay, those are set in place. Just try to fill in pieces wherever they'll fit. This is looking really good so far. I'm liking this a lot. Here's a pretty bare patch. And it's okay to have a bare spot on a ring. I really like having a lot of variation on stuff. But I think this is a good opportunity to fit in some of our larger opal pieces. Oh, almost lost this one. There we go, saved it. There we go. And before I add the glue, sometimes the glue, when it touches the gems, it kind of sucks them into position away from where I have them. So if you can add the powder first. Oh, just lost that piece. I need to add another. There we go. I added a little too much powder, so I needed to blow some of it off. There we go, that's just right. Now I'll add the glue and it should stay in place a lot better. There we go. Okay, we've just got about 1/3 of the ring left to do with opal. Then we'll be ready to fill it in with the rest of our inlay powder. And then we can get to sanding it down. Struggling. I'm wanting to get some small pieces, and it's pretty tricky to pick up. There we go. Again, I had to get those positioned just right. If they topple over or move, they might not be visible in the ring. So I'm going to try to give them support base material. And then I'll put the glue on. You don't ever want to do too much of your powder before adding glue, because you can have a dry spot in the middle of it, and when you sand through it, it'll make a pocket in your ring, and you definitely don't want that. It takes quite a while to fill those in and fix them, so everything we can do to avoid that, it's definitely worth doing. Just lost another piece. That's too bad. Oh well, I've got enough here. There's probably enough in one of these jars that we send with our supplies from our supply site. There's probably enough for 2, 3, maybe 4 rings, depending on how much you use per ring, and depending on how careful you are with it. I've lost a few pieces here, but not too much. There we go. Okay, here's our last spot for opal. I think I'll try to get 2 small pieces in here. Have them just barely peek out. Awesome. I think that should be good. I'll go over it one last time to make sure. Yeah, we've got that filled in really nicely. Not seeing any issues here. I think it's looking really good. Perfect. So now all that's left to do is I need to take the inlay powder, go around and fill it all the way up, because it's still, like you can see, especially like right here, we haven't brought it up to be level with the edges of the cobalt chrome ring blank. So I need to fill that all in. Once I'm done filling it in with all the inlay powder, we'll just have to sand it down. I'll use my Dremel to grind down the harder, like the emerald. The emerald's really hard, so it takes a while to cut through it, kind of like how diamonds can be a bit tricky. So I'll go through probably a lot of these Dremel bits here. But once we get it ground down, I'll just need to sand it up and we can do some polishing, and we should be done here pretty quick. So I'm excited to get to it. All right, I've got it all inlaid. I've got enough glow powder in there. And I gave it about 5 minutes to cure after using some of my accelerator here. So now I'm going to take my Dremel and I just put a fresh bit on it. And I'm going to go grind down any of the high points. So anywhere where anything's sticking out, you can see there's a big piece of marble here, emerald here, just all these little high points. So I'll just grind it all down, get it to the point where it's fairly flat, and then I'll work on generally sanding it down so that it's even with the cobalt chrome. You can see this emerald, it's taken a lot more work to get through than the marble did. The marble just kind of sands straight through it. So I'm just taking my time. I don't want it to overheat because if it overheats, it can ruin the adhesive and then it'll dislodge and fall out. So I definitely don't want that. So I'm taking my time. I'll even get some water out here and I can use that to keep it all cool if I need it. And that's just tearing up my Dremel bit a little too quickly. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to replace it with a new one. Then I'm going to go around and I'll just hit the marble and the opal. And then I'll go and do all the emerald. That way I'm not going through so much sandpaper. All right, now I've sanded all the other materials. I'll go through now and hit all of the emerald. Then I'll do some more general sanding to get it flush with the chrome, the cobalt chrome, I should say. All right, I've got it down to the point where everything's pretty much even. I've just got a little bit more sanding to do. So at this point, I'm going to turn the lathe on and use it to just evenly remove all the last excess material. All right, I've got everything flush. I think I might have a little bit of excess material on the bevels of the ring. And so an easy way to check for that is to just take like a razor blade and run it over there. That's actually smooth. Let's see about this. That might have just been dust. I felt it catch a couple of times. Sometimes you can just get small little specks of glue on there. So I think that should have gotten rid of everything. Now I need to dry it off. I'll use a heat gun, but I'll just use this paper towel to get rid of anything excess. But what I'll do after this is I'm going to take some, let's see, let me grab the heat gun real quick. Okay, and I'll just dry this out, make sure there's no water in there, just so you know if there's any moisture that gets on the adhesive at all, it'll cloud up and go kind of foggy, a white color. So you don't want any of that. We want it to remain crystal clear. So this is just to get rid of any of that, and then I'll go ahead and put down a little layer of that, and that'll fill in any of the gaps or voids. All right, so now what I've got here, this is super thin cyanacrylate. You can see just how low of a viscosity it has. Here's the other stuff. If I shake that around, it's almost like honey. And this stuff, it's like thinner than water. So what this will do, it's really good at seeping into any cracks or voids that we've got on here. And so I'll just turn the lathe on and just put this smallest little bead all around the ring, and that'll seep into any of the cracks. And it actually uses what's called capillary action. That's how like trees get their water all the way to the top. The surface tension of the adhesive will actually suck it into all the little cracks because it's such a low viscosity liquid. I'm always getting the viscosity mixed up, whether it's high or low. But just know that it's really runny, just like water. Perfect, that's looking really good. Okay, I hit it with some accelerator. I'm just gonna check to make sure there's nothing else that I need to give any attention. Looks really good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand it just a little bit more to get rid of that excess layer of glue that I just put on. Once I do that, I'll switch over to our sandpaper, and then we'll be ready to get the final finish put on this. All right, perfect. Now I'm going to get out, this is all that I've got left of my booklet of sandpaper. But I'll use this to sand all the way through, give it a really nice finish, and then we'll polish it up and it'll be ready to go. All right, so my sanding technique, there's not too much to it, especially on cobalt chrome. It's a fairly easy material to work with. One thing I do want to be careful about though is not rounding the bevels on this. It'll kind of give it kind of a smeared look. It's just not as sharp or professional looking. So I'm really careful about that. I just keep the sandpaper flat and just work parallel to the ring. That way I don't round those corners down too much. I'm starting off with 220 grit sandpaper. I think that's a nice starting point. It's not too aggressive, but it doesn't take too long to get it smooth enough to where you can move on to the next steps. And this is a really important step. If you don't have enough of 220, it's important to go ahead and use some more, because this is where you get rid of any of the big defects that were left in it from the rough Dremel. So I want to take my time and do a really thorough job here. Just make sure that's ready before I move on to the next step. Okay, and you'll see I wiped it off. That gets rid of any of the grit that came off of that old sandpaper. Sometimes you can get little particles that get stuck on there, and it'll kind of contaminate it so that you've got larger grit sanding particles on there you'll notice that you're not getting rid of some of the scratches, and it's because you're leaving scratches with those particles. So you need to rinse it off and wipe it off in between sandpaper steps. And I sometimes do it a couple times just to be extra sure and to just see how it's going. It's already looking really good, actually, the finish. And I'm just barely past 220, so far so good. It's looking nice. Now I'll move on to my next step, and from here there's not really anything more to it. Just want to wipe it off, do a good thorough job, and just go all the way through. I go to about 2,000 grit before I switch over to a polisher. All right, we've got all the sanding finished. It's looking almost polished, but we definitely will see a difference after we hit it with the polisher. So I'll just carefully take this off, head over to the polisher, and then we'll be finished here pretty quick. All right, and cobalt chrome is actually really easy to polish. It's not like titanium where you have to worry about using the correct RPMs or not overheating it or anything like that. It's just really straightforward. You just don't want to overheat the resin in the middle, the inlay. So, just like normal, I got my white polish on the left, green polish on the right, and I'll just slowly go around the whole ring, polish the whole thing. The white polish just gets rid of any of those little micro scratches that were left over by the sandpaper. And I did notice there was some. So I'm doing a good thorough job here. Looks good. Now moving on over here. This should be quick. Just want to go all the way around the ring. There we go, simple as that. Wow, that actually brought the shine up a lot. It's got a much nicer color to it, I think, as well. So that worked really well. Never underestimate the importance of a good polish. All right, here the ring is finished. You can see it's got a really nice, deep, rich green. The opal, it's subtle, but it gives it a nice splash of color that I like. Here, let me take it off. You can see the opal, how it kind of changes colors as I rotate it. And then the emerald right here, especially right here, you can see how it's translucent where I didn't put the glow powder down first. That gives it a really nice depth effect. We've got that really dark green marble in there. So it looks really nice. I'm really happy with the way this turned out. The cobalt chrome shines up so nicely. It's always fun. You can see it's literally like a mirror. So yeah, guys, this is the ring. This is a lot of fun to make, and I'm glad I've got a new ring for my personal collection. I think this one looks really nice. We're gonna have this on the website as a special edition ring. I realized the other day we don't have any cobalt chrome special edition rings. So if you're trying to get a cobalt chrome ring at a good discount, the special edition ring, this is a really good opportunity for that. So yeah, we'll have a link down in the description. You can check that out. If you enjoyed the video, you can give it a like. You can leave a comment with any suggestions or just thoughts, feedback you've got. But other than that, I just want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.